The first meeting. The first snow of the season drifted down over the sleepy town of Alderbrook, coating rooftops like powdered sugar on gingerbread houses. Tucked between the pine trees and quiet hills stood a small cafe called The Nest, a favorite among locals for its warmth and handwritten menu. Ava Walker had just finished her shift at the local animal shelter, her long brown coat dotted with muddy paw prints and her scarf twisted awkwardly around her neck. She was tired, a little cold, and craving the cafe's spiced chai more than anything else in the world. She pushed through the cafe door, greeted by a rush of cinnamon-scented heat and a familiar "Hey, Ava," from the barista behind the counter. What she didn't expect was to notice someone new. He sat alone at a corner table by the window. A pair of noise-canceling headphones hung around his neck, and a worn notebook sat open in front of him. He was tall, or at least he looked like he would be if he stood. His presence was striking, something between quiet strength and silent mystery. One detail stood out immediately, the sleek, high-tech wheelchair that supported him. Ava couldn't help but glance again as she ordered her drink. He caught her eye and smiled, a smile that carried both history and kindness. She smiled back instinctively. She took her drink and moved to the other side of the room. But after a few moments of internal debate and encouragement from the cafe's cozy ambience, she walked toward him. "Hi," she said, tapping the edge of his table lightly. "I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but, is that a sketchbook?" He looked up from the page, his eyes a deep blue like stormy ocean water. "It is," he said, smiling again. "Most people ask if it's a journal." "Too many smudges on the side for that," she said, nodding at the faint streaks of charcoal near the corners. "Do you mind?" He tilted the book toward her. A drawing of a dog stared back up at her, a Labrador, mid-leap, tongue out, joy personified in fur. "That's Cooper," she gasped. "From the shelter." "You drew him?" "You work at Hope Haven?" he asked, his expression brightening. She nodded. "Yeah, part-time. He's our longest resident. He's a bit rowdy." "I like him," the man said. "There's something raw and joyful in him. Like he knows he's been hurt, but he still chooses to wag his tail." That's a beautiful way to put it," Ava said softly. "I'm Noah," he added. "Noah Fields." "Ava Walker. Nice to meet you." And just like that, something unspoken sparked between them. Not love, not yet. But something solid. Something worth exploring. Over the next few weeks, they kept running into each other, at the Nest, at the shelter, at the bookstore across the street. Noah was an artist, a freelance illustrator who worked from home most days. After a car accident 5 years ago, he'd lost partial use of his legs and was now navigating life with a hybrid wheelchair and 2 prosthetics, which he rarely wore in public. "I used to hike," he said once, showing her a sketch of the mountains he used to love. "After the accident, I tried to go back. But it wasn't the same." "You still draw them," Ava said, watching his fingers dance across the page. "I draw what I miss," he replied. She paused, then asked gently, "Do you miss walking?" There was a long silence, and then he looked up at her with that same soft intensity. "Some days, yes. But most days, I just miss what I thought my life would be." She understood that. They both carried wounds. Ava's mother had passed from cancer 3 years ago, and the ache still curled around her heart some nights like a vine. And so, 2 people with bruised histories found comfort in each other's quiet. One night, just before Christmas, they found themselves walking, or rather, strolling, through the holiday fair in Alderbrook's town square. Lights dangled from every building, and the smell of roasted nuts hung thick in the air. "I've never seen the town look this pretty," Ava said, wrapping her scarf tighter. "It's always like this," Noah said. "But I think I forgot to notice until recently." They stopped by a vendor selling handmade ornaments. Ava picked one shaped like a little paw print. "For Cooper," she said with a grin. Noah bought it before she could reach for her wallet. "Merry almost Christmas." Ava blushed. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to," he said. The snow began to fall gently again. Around them, couples laughed, children ran, bells jingled. And in the center of it all, Noah turned to Ava. I know this might be fast, but would you like to spend Christmas with me? I've got nowhere fancy to go. Just me, a tree that leans a little to the left, and probably too much hot chocolate." Ava's lips parted in surprise. Not because he asked, but because she realized how much she wanted to say yes. "I'd love that," she said. They fell into rhythm after that. Not a whirlwind romance, but a steady, intentional closeness. Ava started bringing home-baked cookies to their sketch sessions. Noah surprised her with illustrations of the shelter animals, each one accompanied by a little caption in his neat handwriting. By spring, Ava had memorized the creak of Noah's apartment door, the sound of his wheels rolling across hardwood, the way he always played soft jazz when he worked. He, in turn, had learned her coffee order, the way she tapped her fingers when deep in thought, and that she always cried a little during Disney movies, even the ones she'd seen 100 times. One afternoon, as they sat by the lake just outside town, Noah sketching, Ava feeding the ducks, he looked up suddenly. "I never asked if my wheelchair bothered you." The question caught her off guard. Not because it was rude, but because it seemed so far from her own truth. "It's part of you," she said simply. "I love all of you." It was the first time she'd said the word love out loud. And when she saw the look in his eyes, the look of a man who had waited his whole life for someone to say that without flinching, she knew she meant it with her whole heart. By summer, they were inseparable. And one sunny evening in July, as fireworks bloomed over the lake and Ava laughed with her face tilted to the sky, Noah knew exactly what he wanted. He began to plan. Quietly. Carefully. Secretly. Because if Ava had taught him anything, it was this. Love doesn't look for perfection. It looks for presence. It looks for effort. It looks for someone who chooses you even when life doesn't. The secret promise. The summer in Alderbrook was always a gentle affair. While other towns roasted under the heat, Alderbrook glowed with golden sunlight and cool breezes off the lake. The trees were full, their leaves fluttering like whispers, and the days stretched long into lavender-tinted evenings. Noah had never been a fan of summer, not since the accident. The warmth used to mean hikes, travel, and movement. Now it mostly meant heat rash, awkward sunblock applications on his prosthetics, and navigating uneven terrain with extra caution. But that summer, he didn't mind. Because that summer, he had Ava. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel like he was missing out. They spent their weekends exploring the quiet corners of Alderbrook. One Saturday, Ava dragged Noah to an old greenhouse that had been converted into a botanical library. They sat in the shade of ivy-draped walls, surrounded by gardening books, sipping iced tea while Ava tried to convince Noah that plants could feel emotions. He raised an eyebrow. "You think succulents get their feelings hurt if we forget to water them?" Ava giggled. "Not hurt. Just disappointed." "I feel like I've disappointed several cacti in my lifetime," he said, laughing. It wasn't just the laughter that made those moments beautiful, it was the ease. The comfort. Ava never looked at him with pity, never made him feel like an exception or a burden. With her, he was just Noah, not Noah in a wheelchair or Noah who used to walk. And that freedom was intoxicating. But beneath all the serenity, a storm had started to gather quietly in Noah's chest. Because he had made a decision. One he hadn't told anyone, not Ava, not even his physical therapist. He was going to walk again. Not permanently. Not casually. Just once. Once, for her. On their wedding day. It had begun with a thought, fleeting and fragile, on the night he decided to propose. Ava had fallen asleep on the couch, a movie still playing softly in the background, her head resting gently on his shoulder. He had looked at her, her face peaceful, her hand curled around his, and he knew she was the woman he wanted to grow old with. And yet, something tugged at him. A small, stubborn voice that whispered, "Give her more." She never asked for more. Never implied she wanted him to be whole, never looked at him like he was broken. But Noah, deep down, wanted to give her a memory so powerful that it would live in her bones for the rest of her life. So he decided. He would surprise her. On their wedding day, when the officiant said, "Please rise," he would stand. He would take a few steps toward her, no walker, no wheelchair, just his prosthetics, a practiced gait, and sheer determination. But to make it happen, he'd need time. Secrecy. And pain. A lot of pain. Noah began his training in secret. He started by revisiting his old physical therapist, Erin, who had been with him during the darkest days after the accident. She was shocked when he told her his plan. "Noah, you've made peace with the chair. You've built your life around it. Why this now?" "It's not because I hate the chair," he said quietly. "It's because I love her." Erin studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Okay. But this won't be easy. You've been off your prosthetics for over a year. Your muscles have atrophied, your balance is out of practice, and the pain." "I know," he said. "Do it anyway." So they began. The sessions were brutal. Twice a week, early in the morning before Ava's shift at the shelter started. Each session left Noah drenched in sweat, his shoulders aching, his legs trembling from the strain of trying to hold him upright. Every minute on the parallel bars was a war against his body's refusal. Reflex sympathetic dystrophy didn't just affect his legs, it made every attempt at mobility feel like his nervous system was on fire. Sometimes he cried, not just from the pain, but from frustration. One day, he collapsed on the mat, unable to hold himself up anymore. "This is impossible," he gasped. "I'm fooling myself." Erin knelt beside him. "You're not. But you need to understand, this isn't just physical. You're going to need every ounce of mental strength too. You can do this. But it will cost you." Noah looked at the ceiling, sweat stinging his eyes. "I'll pay it." To keep the secret, Noah began crafting elaborate excuses. He told Ava he was working on a children's book project with tight deadlines. Sometimes he claimed he had meetings in town, or errands to run. Ava didn't push. She respected his space. But she noticed the exhaustion in his eyes, the way he winced when he sat, how he sometimes seemed distracted. "Are you okay?" she asked one night as they watched the stars from their balcony. "You've been distant lately." He hesitated, guilt pooling in his stomach. He hated lying to her. But it was necessary. "Just for a little longer." "Just tired," he said, kissing her forehead. "Work's been heavy." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "Promise me if something's wrong, you'll tell me." "I promise," he whispered. And he meant it. Because what he was doing wasn't wrong. It was the opposite. It was love, in its most determined form. Months passed. Leaves turned amber. Rain replaced sunshine. And the day finally came when Noah stood unaided for a full 2 minutes. "3 steps," Erin said. "You're ready for 3. Noah took them. Slow. Shaky. But solid. Tears streamed down his face. Erin didn't stop them. "You're going to make her cry," she said with a smile. "That's the plan," he replied. Meanwhile, Ava was planning the wedding. Small, intimate. Lakeside. She'd chosen a simple dress, no heels, no fuss. Her only request had been to write their own vows. "I want the words to come from us," she said. "Not some script." Noah nodded. And in his heart, he was already writing his vow not just with words, but with action. With every step, he carved a promise into time. One evening, a month before the wedding, Ava found Noah asleep in his studio. His wheelchair was pushed to the side. His prosthetics rested beside him. He'd been drawing pages filled with illustrations of her. Her laugh. Her eyes. Her hair twisted up while painting the guest favors. She tucked a blanket around him, gently brushing a curl off his forehead. Her eyes drifted to one of the sketches, it showed the two of them at the altar. But something was different. In the drawing, Noah was standing. She stared at it for a long time. Her heart ached, but not from sadness. From awe. She didn't say anything. Not yet. The secret still lived between them. But secrets made with love, unlike lies, had the power to bloom. And as the wedding drew closer, so did the moment that would change everything. Noah had a dream that night. He was standing beneath the autumn trees, Ava walking toward him, her eyes wide with surprise. He held out his hand. She took it. No chair. No barriers. Just them. The weight of secrets. Autumn unfurled across Alderbrook like a watercolor painting, trees ablaze in crimson and gold, lake water crisp and still as glass. The air carried the soft scent of chimney smoke and damp earth. It was Ava's favorite time of year. She said it was the season of in-between, the bridge between warmth and cold, life and rest, memories and beginnings. But this fall, something else lingered in the air. Something unnamed. Something Ava couldn't quite place. She and Noah were closer than ever on the surface. They met with caterers, debated napkin colors, tasted wedding cakes, and giggled over old photos for their memory wall. Their evenings were spent planning playlists and picking wildflowers, curled up on the couch or wrapped in blankets on the porch. Yet, Ava could feel something beneath the love and laughter, a pressure. Noah was holding something in. And it was starting to show. He flinched when she touched his back. His muscles were tight, his posture more strained. He kept disappearing for hours at a time with vague explanations, meetings, deadlines, errands. His sketchbooks were closed now, hidden. His smiles, still warm, carried a flicker of effort. Ava tried not to pry. She trusted him. But trust didn't erase worry. One night, she found him standing, propped between the kitchen counter and a wall, drenched in sweat, shaking. Noah, she gasped. He collapsed to the floor before she could reach him, breathing hard, pain etched into every line of his face. She rushed to his side. "What are you doing?" she whispered, heart pounding. "I'm fine," he said through gritted teeth, avoiding her eyes. I lost balance. I was stretching." "You don't look fine," she said, her hands trembling. He forced a smile. "Really, I just overdid it. I'm okay." But Ava saw the truth in his trembling hands. And worse, she saw the lie. A lie he wasn't ready to explain. She sat beside him on the cold tile, quiet. She didn't press. She just laid her head against his shoulder. Noah closed his eyes, the guilt burning deeper than the pain. In his sessions with Aaron, Noah pushed himself harder. Every hour he spent upright took a toll on his body. Nerve pain flared like wildfire. His joints screamed. His back throbbed from compensating for the unevenness in his prosthetics. But still, he walked. 4 steps. 5. He practiced on different surfaces, wood, tile, grass. Aaron built mock aisle setups in the therapy center. She hung strings of fake flowers, played wedding music from her phone. "You sure this is worth it?" she asked during a break. "She already loves you." "I'm not doing this to earn her love," Noah replied, his jaw clenched. "I'm doing it to honor it." That night, he could barely crawl into bed. Ava was already asleep, curled around a pillow, breathing softly. Noah stared at her for a long time. How do you tell someone you're breaking yourself apart just to give them a piece of magic? Meanwhile, Ava visited her childhood home, a quaint blue cottage just outside town, to retrieve a family heirloom veil her mother had left for her. Inside, dust lay over old furniture, the air thick with memories. In her mother's sewing room, she found a small chest filled with trinkets, letters, and a leather-bound notebook. It wasn't the veil that caught her attention, it was the drawings. Pages and pages of Noah's sketches, her, drawn in intricate detail. Her laugh. Her tears. Her reading. Sleeping. Dancing barefoot in the kitchen. He had drawn her in moments she hadn't even known he'd noticed. But one sketch froze her. It was of their wedding. She was standing at the altar, hand extended, and Noah, standing upright, was taking it. Her breath hitched. It was just a drawing. Wasn't it? That night, Ava sat on their porch alone, a blanket around her shoulders, eyes fixed on the moonlit lake. Noah joined her minutes later, his movements stiff. "You okay?" he asked, sitting beside her. She nodded. Then turned, met his gaze, and said, "Are you?" His breath caught. "I know something's going on, Noah. I'm not trying to force you to tell me. But I feel it. In the way you hold yourself. In the spaces between your words." Noah looked down. Silence stretched between them. Then he reached for her hand. "I want our wedding to be unforgettable," he said softly. "And to do that, I have to do something hard." "Hard, or dangerous?" she asked gently. His silence was the answer. "I saw the drawing," she whispered. He looked up, startled. "I found it by accident. In the old sketchbook. The one where you drew us at the altar." Noah's throat tightened. "It was just an idea." "Or a dream?" she asked. He nodded slowly. "I didn't want to spoil the surprise," he said. "But more than that, I didn't want to fail." Ava's eyes shimmered. "You never could." She placed a hand on his chest, over his heart. "You already gave me the miracle. It's you. The way you see me. The way you choose me, every day." He leaned into her touch, tears blurring his vision. "I'm still going to do it," he whispered. "I know," she replied. And in that moment, there was no more hiding. Just truth. And love. Vows without words. 2 weeks before the wedding, Alderbrook turned to gold. The lake glistened under an amber sun, the trees humming with wind in memory. Ava and Noah's venue, a small clearing near the edge of the water, was coming together beautifully. Wildflower centerpieces. Twinkle lights strung between trees. A live acoustic guitarist scheduled to play as Ava walked down the aisle. But underneath the enchantment, things were raw. Real. Noah's body was close to its limit. He had pushed through the pain, past logic, beyond the whispers of doubt. But the truth was unignorable now, his nerves were deteriorating faster than expected. Every walk was harder than the last. Each step a thunderclap of agony. At their final fitting, Noah could barely stand long enough to try on the custom suit Ava had chosen, a deep gray ensemble tailored to accommodate his prosthetics but cut in such a way that, if he stood, it would fall clean and seamless. "I don't care if you wear pajamas," Ava said, watching him wince as the tailor adjusted his cuff. "You're still the most handsome man I've ever seen." Noah chuckled, breathless. "That's just the pain talking." "No," she said, holding his gaze. "That's love talking." On the eve of the wedding, they held a small dinner with their closest family and friends. Stories were shared. Laughter floated on candlelight. Noah's younger brother, Tyler, toasted him. "Most people think of strength as something physical. But my brother? He redefined it for me. He lost his legs. But never his heart. Never his humor. Never his courage." Ava squeezed Noah's hand under the table. Later that night, alone in their cabin, she brought out a small wooden box. Inside was a letter from her mother. "It was written for my wedding day," she said. "She wrote it before the cancer got bad. I haven't read it." "Not yet." Noah nodded, watching her eyes well up. Ava opened it. "Read it silently." Then looked at him. She said, "Love isn't measured by what you can do for someone. It's measured by what you're willing to endure with someone." She folded the letter, kissed it, and tucked it back inside. Noah didn't speak. He didn't need to. Because her words were his truth. The morning of the wedding dawned quiet and still. Noah stood at the edge of the aisle, breath trembling. Erin was beside him, giving last-minute support. "You ready?" she asked. "No," he said honestly. "Good," she smiled. "Means it matters." When the music started, and the guests rose, Noah stayed seated. Until he didn't. With slow precision, with fire in his legs and tears in his eyes, he stood. The crowd gasped. Someone sobbed. And at the far end of the aisle, Ava's hands flew to her mouth. She was radiant in her gown, but it was the shock in her eyes that took Noah's breath away. He took a step. Then another. 3 steps. Then paused. His body trembled, his knees buckled. But Ava was already running. She reached him, held him upright, wrapped herself around him before he could fall. Together, they stood. And the world fell silent around them. When love walked in. The wind that drifted through the trees at Lakeshore Grove that afternoon carried more than the scent of pine and water, it carried a hush. A reverent stillness. As if the earth itself was holding its breath. Noah stood. And everyone watched with the kind of silence usually reserved for miracles. His hands trembled, his breath came in short gasps, but he was standing upright, unaided, at the altar. The lake behind him shimmered like glass. Golden leaves danced above like confetti from nature itself. And Ava? She froze halfway down the aisle, 1 foot forward, veil fluttering around her shoulders. Her eyes, wide and disbelieving, locked onto his. Her bouquet slipped slightly in her grasp, but she didn't care. Her breath hitched. Then, slowly, her hand moved to cover her mouth, where the sob had begun to rise. He was walking. Step by trembling step. Her groom. The man she loved, not because he stood, but because he loved back with a kind of devotion that rewrote the very rules of what devotion meant. Noah's world blurred. Pain pulsed through his body like thunderclaps under skin. Every nerve in his legs lit up in protest, but his mind pushed forward. He wasn't walking for approval. Or pride. Or to prove something to the world. He was walking toward the only person who ever looked at him like he was whole. And halfway to Ava, his knees buckled. The pain won. His legs gave out, and for a terrifying heartbeat, it looked like he would collapse completely. But Ava was already moving. She dropped the bouquet. Hiked up her dress. And ran. She caught him just as he dropped to one knee, arms wrapping around his shoulders, holding him like gravity could be argued with. "I got you," she whispered into his ear. "I almost made it," he choked out. "You made it the moment you stood up," she said. "This isn't failure. This is forever." The officiant stood quietly as they composed themselves, a soft smile on his face. Guests sniffled. Some clapped. Most cried. Together, Ava and Noah turned to face the altar, still holding onto each other. A groomsman discreetly wheeled Noah's chair nearby, but he shook his head. "Help me stand," he whispered. So Ava stood behind him, arms firm beneath his shoulders, and held him up. Not out of pity. But out of love. The officiant cleared his throat. "Today," he began, "we're not just witnessing a marriage. We're witnessing the kind of love that doesn't need explanation. The kind that endures, adapts, and refuses to quit." He turned to Noah. "Are you ready for your vows?" Noah nodded. Ava steadied him. But instead of reaching into his pocket, Noah took a deep breath. "I memorized them," he said, voice hoarse. "I wanted to speak them. Not just read them." Ava's heart clenched. "I used to think strength was something you earn, something built in gyms, or recovered in hospitals. But then I met you. And you taught me that real strength isn't about muscle or movement. It's about how steady your heart stays, even when everything else is shaking." He paused, the wind brushing through his hair. "I know there are days ahead where I won't be able to stand. Days when I fall again. And again. But I vow this, I'll always get back up in the ways that matter. I vow to choose you, even when I'm hurting. To laugh with you when we're old. To cry with you when life doesn't make sense. I vow to never hide from you again. You've given me a home in your love, and I promise to live in that home every day we have left." His voice broke. "So if you'll have me in all my brokenness and becoming, then I'm yours." Ava was already crying, her hands trembling in his. But she didn't falter. She leaned forward slightly and spoke. "Noah, when I first met you, I didn't see the chair. I saw you. But what I didn't realize then is that your chair wasn't what limited you, it's what carried you. And today, you chose to step out of it for me. But please know, I would choose you in it, over 1,000 men who could run marathons. Laughter and sobs rippled through the crowd. I vow to never make you earn my love, it's already yours. I vow to stand for you when you can't. To dance with you, even if we're sitting down. To listen when words fail. To fight for you, even if we're both tired. And to hold you physically, emotionally, completely, until neither of us can hold anymore. She smiled through her tears. And yes, I'll have you. Not because you stood, but because you stayed. You stayed with me in every way that counts. They exchanged rings, hands trembling, hearts wide open. When the officiant announced them husband and wife, Ava didn't wait. She kissed him like the end of a fairy tale and the start of a forever, all in one breath. The guests erupted in applause. Later. After the ceremony, the guests filtered toward the lakeside reception, following the scent of apple cider and rosemary roasted vegetables. Noah rested in his chair now, the effort of walking finally catching up to him. He felt hollowed out, but also full in a way he hadn't thought possible. Ava knelt beside him as their photographer adjusted equipment nearby. You okay? She asked, brushing sweat-damp hair from his forehead. He nodded. Hurts like hell. But worth it? He met her eyes. I'd do it again tomorrow. She leaned in. Let's not, she whispered. Let's just be. You did enough. During the reception, there were more surprises. Ava had prepared a slideshow of their relationship, photos of their first picnic, their dog adopting them, the time they tried cooking together and nearly set the kitchen on fire. But in between the humor and sweetness, she'd added one unexpected frame. A quote. Love doesn't require legs to stand. It requires hearts that refuse to sit still. The room went quiet. Then the music started again, and the first dance approached. Noah hesitated. He had planned to try and stand again for this, even if briefly, but his body wouldn't let him. The nerves had given up. He knew if he tried, he might collapse in front of everyone. But Ava simply walked over, took his hands, and sat down in his lap. We dance like this, she whispered. And they swayed, right there in his chair, her arms around his neck, his wrap tight around her waist. The music was soft, acoustic, just strings and a whisper of piano. And their love danced without ever needing to move. That night, as the guests departed, stars scattered the sky. Noah and Ava sat at the water's edge, feet in the cold lake, shoes long forgotten. Ava reached over and pressed her hand against his heart. You don't need to walk to make me feel loved, she whispered. You just need to stay close. I will, he promised. In every way I can. And beneath the stars, wrapped in silence, they didn't speak anymore. Because some vows don't need repeating. They just need living. The shape of forever. 5 years later. The seasons had turned over many times since that day by the lake, each one sweeping through the lives of Ava and Noah like brushstrokes on canvas. The golden wedding photos still hung in their living room. The wildflowers from the aisle had long dried and pressed into frames. But the real testament to their love wasn't in decorations or photographs, it was in the quiet rhythm of the life they had built. A home tucked in the woods, not far from Alderbrook. A porch wrapped in ivy. Wind chimes made from silver cutlery. A swing Noah built for Ava, though she insisted she preferred sitting in his lap. Their house wasn't large. But their laughter filled every corner. The first few years of marriage weren't always soft. Noah's condition worsened, slowly but steadily. The nerve damage spread into his spine, complicating things. He had more bad days than good. Sometimes, he couldn't get out of bed. Other times, he refused to stop trying, even when it hurt. Ava never left his side. She adapted her work as a freelance editor, often bringing her laptop into the bedroom so she could be near him. They made their own schedules, made space for rest, made fun out of boring chores, turning grocery lists into treasure hunts and medication timers into dance alarms. Noah's art evolved too. He could no longer sketch with the speed he once had, but he learned to use voice-activated software to design. With Ava's help, he began illustrating a children's book, The Boy Who Painted Stars, about a child who couldn't walk but traveled the galaxy in his imagination. Publishers called it magical. Ava called it him. One late autumn morning, Ava stood by the kitchen window, watching the leaves swirl across the ground. Behind her, Noah's voice broke the quiet. "Come here," he said. She turned to find him holding something behind his back. His chair was turned toward the fireplace. His hair had gone a little grayer at the temples. His face was more lined, but his eyes, those stayed the same. "What are you hiding?" she asked, stepping forward. "Open your hand," he said. She did. He placed something small and soft in her palm, a baby sock. Her eyes widened. Then her gaze darted to his face. "Noah!" He smiled. "It's time," he said. "Let's adopt." They named her Marin. She was born 2 towns over, to a mother who couldn't raise her, but wanted her to be loved. From the moment Ava and Noah met her, tiny, swaddled, blinking slowly like a sleepy moonbeam, they were undone. Noah had never been more terrified in his life. "I can't even stand," he said quietly one night. "How do I father someone who's going to run laps around me?" Ava laid their daughter gently in his arms. Marin wriggled once, then settled against his chest. "You don't need to stand to show her how to be strong," she said. "You just have to love her like you've loved me." And he did. With everything he had. Marin grew quickly. By her 3rd birthday, she'd learned how to climb into her father's lap on her own. Daddy's wheels go fast, she'd squeal as they sped around the garden paths in his chair, her arms raised like airplane wings. She drew pictures that filled their fridge, stick figures with giant hearts and stars for eyes. She called them our family. One always had wheels, and one always had a crown. That was Daddy. That was Mommy. One evening, as the sun dipped below the trees, Ava found Marin sitting on the porch, watching the shadows stretch. "What are you thinking about, love?" she asked, sitting beside her. Marin furrowed her brow. "Why can't Daddy walk?" Ava blinked. They'd talked about it before, but this was the first time Marin really asked. She took a breath. "Daddy's legs stopped working a long time ago, before you were born. But they're only one part of him." Marin turned. "Does it make him sad?" "Sometimes," Ava said honestly. "But he's also proud. Because even without walking, he's done so many big things. He's loved really, really hard. He's taught people things. He's been brave every day." Marin tilted her head. "So he walks with his heart?" Ava smiled, tears rising. "Exactly, baby. Exactly that." The next day, Marin handed Noah a drawing. It showed him in his chair, arms outstretched, surrounded by floating stars. Beside him was Ava, holding his hand. Above them was Marin, with fairy wings. At the top, in bright red crayon, she'd written, "You walk with your heart." Noah stared at it for a long time. Then he framed it. 10 years passed. And one warm spring afternoon, Ava and Noah sat at the edge of their now blooming garden. Marin, 13 now, was helping plant lavender, earbuds in, humming off-key. Noah watched her, pride spilling out of him. "I used to think our wedding day would be the best day of my life," he said softly. Ava looked over. "It was beautiful," she said. He nodded. "But this? Sitting here, with her, with you? This is better. Because we didn't just say vows. We lived them." Ava leaned her head on his shoulder. "You gave me a miracle that day," she whispered. "But the real miracle? It was everything that came after." That night, after Marin went to bed, Ava wheeled Noah out to the porch. The moon hung low. The lake shimmered in the distance. "You remember what you said at the altar?" Ava asked suddenly. "Most of it," Noah said with a grin. "Why?" "You said you'd always get back up in the ways that matter." He looked at her. "Yeah? She nodded, eyes full. You did, Noah. Again and again. You got back up in your heart. In your faith. In your love. And every time you did, you brought me with you. He reached for her hand. I couldn't have done it without you. She kissed his knuckles. You never had to. The stars blinked overhead. And somewhere between the breeze and the silence, a vow whispered through the trees, not spoken aloud, but lived in every moment that passed. Because real love isn't just about standing at the altar. It's about standing by someone when they can't. It's about the thousands of tiny yesterdays and tomorrows you build together when the world isn't watching. It's the quiet bravery of a hand held in the dark. It's the shape of forever.